Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MindSprout. Today, let's dive into the nonfiction part of the Jacobean age, and who better to kickstart it than Francis Bacon? He was a statesman, a philosopher, and, a visionary who basically believed the human mind needed a complete system overhaul.
So Bacon kicks off his famous essay of truth with this exact quote. But here's the thing. Unlike Pilate, Bacon desperately wanted to stay for the answer. In fact, he wanted to build a whole new system just for finding it. A system that didn't just run on faith or old arguments, but on actual evidence. The question of truth, that was the central obsession of his entire life.
For centuries, you have to understand, the intellectual world was pretty much haunted by the ghost of Aristotle. The method was always to start with some grand general theory, an axiom you just assumed was true, and then you'd reason your way down to the specifics. Bacon looked at all this and saw a system that was, well, in his words, barren. It wasn't producing anything new. It was just rearranging old ideas.
Okay, so before Bacon could build his new system, he first had to figure out what was so wrong with the old one. And he realized the problem wasn't just a flawed method. The problem was us. He identified these 4 fundamental bugs or glitches in our mental software that just completely distort our perception of reality. And he gave them a name: idols.
Now, when Bacon says idol, he's not talking about a golden statue or anything like that. He means a mental fixation, a fallacy that we kind of worship without even realizing it. These are the deep-seated biases that stop us from seeing the world clearly. His first step was just to name them, to drag them out into the light.
The first idol is basically baked into our DNA as a species, the idol of the tribe. It's our built-in tendency to see patterns where there are none, to believe what we want to be true, and to oversimplify really complex things. You can think of it as the original confirmation bias. Our senses can fool us, and our minds, well, they just love a good shortcut, often jumping to a conclusion way before all the evidence is in.
Next up are the idols of the cave. Now, if the first idol is about our shared human nature, this one is super personal. Imagine each of us lives in our own private cave. The walls are lined with our unique upbringing, our education, our passions, our prejudices. We see the world through the flickering, distorted light of that one cave, and we start believing our personal experience is the universal truth. It is the original echo chamber.
So the third idol, this one comes from just talking to each other. The idols of the marketplace are all about the slipperiness of language. Words are the tools we use to share ideas, but they can be so clumsy and imprecise, right? We argue over terms, we use words as a substitute for real thought, and we get trapped in these debates that are really just misunderstandings about what a word even means.
And the final bug in the system is the idol of the theater. Bacon saw these grand philosophical and theological systems of the past as these elaborate stage plays. They're paraded with authority and grandeur, and we, the audience, we just accept them without question because they're so well rehearsed. These are the dogmas we inherit, the grand stories from influential thinkers that we almost never challenge.
So after identifying all these mental glitches, Bacon proposed a solution, a revolutionary new tool for thinking. He laid it all out in his masterpiece, Novum Organum, which literally translates to new instrument. This was his brand new operating system for the pursuit of knowledge.
And this just brilliantly shows the difference. Aristotle's method was top-down. You start with a big truth and you deduce from there. But, as Bacon pointed out, if a single observation contradicts that big truth, the whole structure just collapses. So Bacon flipped it. His method is bottom-up. You start with specific, careful observations and you build your way up, rung by rung, on what he called a ladder of intellect. It's slower, yeah, it's more work, but it is so much more resilient.
And here's how it actually works. 3 simple but really powerful steps. First, you observe and describe the facts, carefully, systematically, with absolutely no jumping to conclusions. Second, you classify those facts, organizing them into tables to find patterns and weird anomalies. And finally, only then, you use inductive reasoning to form a general conclusion based on that mountain of evidence. This, right here, is the blueprint for modern science.
But Bacon didn't just apply this rigorous thinking to science. He turned that same sharp analytical mind to the messy business of human life. Ambition, love, friendship, revenge, you name it. He did this in a collection of writings that would become one of the most popular books of his time, his essays.
The essays weren't just a one-off project for him. They were a lifelong companion. He published the first version with just 10 essays back in 1597, and then kept refining them, expanding them, and adding to them for nearly 30 years. The final edition had 58 masterful pieces of advice. And this is just pure Bacon, sharp, unsentimental, and so memorable. This is from his essay Of Marriage and Single Life. He had this genius for crafting these little nuggets of wisdom, these aphorisms that cut right to the heart of human experience. He's basically saying that deep personal commitments, well, they make you vulnerable to the whims of fate.
And just look at the range here. He covers everything from the highest philosophical concepts like truth to the most practical parts of daily life like studies, friendship, and ambition. His essays are like a timeless user's manual for navigating the complexities of public and private life. And honestly, they feel just as relevant today.
So, what's the incredible legacy that Bacon left behind? It's really not an exaggeration to say that his ideas have left a permanent fingerprint on the way we think, the way we seek knowledge, and the world we've built because of it.
He earned these huge titles, Father of Empiricism and Father of the Scientific Method. Empiricism is just the idea that knowledge comes from sensory experience and evidence. The scientific method is the process we use to gather and test that evidence. Bacon didn't invent these ideas from nothing, but he was the one who championed them, who systemized them, and who set the stage for a revolution in thought.
If you want a real measure of his influence, just look at this number, 91. That's how many of his sharp, witty observations are considered famous enough to be included in the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations. Phrases like knowledge is power and hostages to fortune, they've become woven right into the fabric of our language.
The impact was just monumental. His new instrument for thinking was picked up by the generations that followed, and it led directly to the scientific revolution. The Royal Society, one of the world's oldest and most respected scientific institutions, was founded on Baconian principles, and his emphasis on reason and evidence became a cornerstone of the entire Enlightenment. And that brings us to a final thought. Bacon taught us to be aware of the glitches in our own thinking. So the question is, if he were alive today, navigating our world of filter bubbles, algorithms, and AI-generated content, what new idols of the cave, the tribe, the marketplace, and the theater would he be warning us about? Now that's a thought worth considering.